computer's fine.
Okay, so we are back with another Fly Maui call. We had a call, I'm calling it a call or a virtual meetup. We had one Sunday this past weekend. We talked about some things that you can do at home. If you are stuck at home, if you're doing the stay-at-home orders, some things that you can educate yourself, keep your mind sharp, maybe get a written test knocked out or at least one studied for, just a lot of different ideas. So if you didn't catch that one, we've got that as a podcast episode on the Fly Maui podcast and also on the Fly Maui YouTube channel. That call is actually video recorded, and we are recording this call as well because we have several people that wanted to hear about the ForeFlight basics that were not able to join us today. But we've got Carrie and John with us today, and we may have a couple others that may pop in here during the call, but we're going to dive right in. Today's just going to be like an overview, basic ForeFlight 101 is what I like to call it. If you have no or very little experience with ForeFlight, or if you just need a refresher, we're just going to kind of give an overview of unleashing a few of the powers of ForeFlight. And then our next call, probably early next week after Easter, will be a bigger deep dive into what ForeFlight is all about. But we're going to throw out some tips and tricks.
Yeah, we're going to share the screen. We've got our iPad right here, so we're going to share the screen through the video, but also and then Carrie, John, that are with us right now, feel free to jump in. And I would say that and Carrie, you can confirm or deny this, but the majority of electronic flight bags that pilots use today, even with the airlines, is ForeFlight. Carrie, what?
Hey, it's not what we had at Alaska. We had a different product. So that's one of the reasons I'm super interested in this, because when I'm flying now for fun, it's not intuitive to me.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, good. Hopefully it'll be helpful. There is a free 30-day trial for any users that are just kind of, and it's iOS devices, whether that's an iPad, an iPhone, even, you can log in via like a Safari or Google Chrome browser as well is another way, but you're not going to have that in a flight. But you can do a free 30-day trial just to test out the waters to see, hey, it doesn't come with all the bells and whistles, but at least it lets you test out, hey, is this something that I want to invest $99 a year in as a subscription? What I think is really interesting and pretty neat is ForeFlight allowed a passenger-free app. So if you've got passengers in your back seat or on board with you, they actually can follow along. They can download a passenger-free app. It's
called the Passenger app.
Yeah, the Passenger app on ForeFlight. So it's really neat. I think it's a good complement for those who maybe just want to follow along during the flight. Here in Maui, it's a little different because most people want to look out the window. They want to see the waterfalls and rainbows. And
we did have a flight one time. We were flying to Hana, or at least around the northeast direction, and our passenger had downloaded the Passenger app and was following along. They were just like super interested in it. And it was finally like, okay, you might want to look out the window now. There's just like this big gushing waterfall out there. But it is really cool because they're following along on, if you've got a VFR sectional pulled up as your background, that's what they see. And they see the geo-referenced airplane following along your route. Yeah, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, you can subscribe to the JEP charts through ForeFlight. I'm guessing that's probably what you all used with Alaskan. And a lot of airlines do use those charts, but now they're integrated into ForeFlight as well.
Yeah, so if you have just a regular subscription, there's 3, I believe, subscription tiers to ForeFlight. Mm-hmm. If you have just a regular subscription, you just get the FAA charts, but then there is the extra add-on subscription to the JEP charts if you want to fly with those.
Yeah. All right, so let's just jump into some of the main tabs. So let me click.
So while he's doing this, I just want to remind you, if you do start flying with ForeFlight, you might want to integrate it, especially I know for us as we're instrument flying and you're using it a lot, just to make sure that you incorporate ForeFlight or any electronic flight bag that you're using, incorporate that into your pre-flight checklist. You're not going to see that usually on the checklist nowadays in the planes. That time is probably coming when all the checklists are revamped. to include your electronic flight bag. But be sure you've got, updated charts. There are a lot of updates on ForeFlight. Usually at least one a week, if not a couple a week.
All right. Can you see the screen?
I'm going to have to try to make it bigger.
Okay. How about you, John? You able to see that?
Yeah, I can see it fine.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll just leave it in that mode right now. Leslie, I'll jump into, we'll just start with the airport tab right there.
Yeah, so ForeFlight is divided up into, I don't know if they call them this, but I call them tabs, and it's almost like a menu. So if you look down at the bottom, that's just kind of what we're going to briefly go through today: airports, maps, plates, documents, imagery, flights, scratchpad, and some of the options underneath more. And so the first one we have is the airports tab, and this is kind of like the homepage. So we've got Kahului pulled up here, and you've got like all this information. And this is one of the things that we're going to go through on the next session. We'll go through all of these tabs, but I'm just going to show you a few things that we've got in here. One of the biggest ones is just like the information that you're going to find for that you typically find in the airport and facilities directory or in your chart supplement. In fact, there's a tab for that. You can actually pull up the AFD for that airport and take a look at it there. But then they take all of that meat and all of that data and break it down into easier to see pieces. So like I've got approach frequency pulled up right here. Luke is probably gonna.
Sorry about that.
Oh no,
right,
it's
no.
okay. Luke will probably bark back at Mana. You can pull up the actual weather for the airport. So here, you've got the METAR. We've got a tab for TAF. Forecast discussion. This is something that I get up every morning and usually sometimes at night, especially if we're going to go flying, and read through that forecast discussion that you can get online, like on the National Weather Service website, but it feeds right into ForeFlight.
One of my favorite is winds aloft. I always look, and you get like right now, 1 o'clock. It gives you the the direction and the speed. So 7 knots. So we're usually either below 3,000 or between 3,000 and 6,000 a lot of times. So just let you know, pretty calm winds. Doesn't it's not going to be exact, but it's going to give you just an idea. Then you can just scroll, and so it's April 9th, there's 4 o'clock, then I'll just go all the way through, and it looks like April 10th, 5 p.m. is the latest one. So it gives you an idea. It just gives you, if you're planning that flight in a couple days, okay, these are, generally speaking, what the winds aloft will be. So I like that particular tab. That's an hour and 15 minutes old. So usually it's very accurate. Gives you, that day out at least.
Yeah, and part of your required pre-flight briefing or pre-flight information that you're supposed to get, if you remember the acronym NW Craft. So the N in NW Craft is your NOTAMs. So right here, you've got your weather, you've got your NOTAMs here. So here's the NOTAMs for Kahului, the different types of NOTAMs. Those are there. We're not going to dive right into those, but all of that's right there on the information, on the airport information page. The taxiway diagram is here. I'll go back. It's up here in the right-hand corner, taxiways. So then it brings up the actual airport diagram plate. And if we were flying right now and you had the subscription, then you would see your aircraft geo-referenced on the plate, which is super helpful. Especially if you're going to an airport that you're not familiar with. If they give you different taxiway instructions to get over to the FBO or to the terminal, then you can even write those out.
And I'll give you, there's a little pencil at the top. If you see the word airport at the top middle, go over to the left, you see the little pencil, just click it. And then if I want to write, right now it's a 16-point font, yellow. So I'm going to take that font down just a little bit. I'm going to go with a green color that'll stand out. And then I've got a little Apple pencil in my hand right here. And if I just want to, I'm going to draw a line. There's 2 hot spots. Maybe I'm in an unfamiliar airport. I'm just going to, I'm going to make sure I remember here's some hot spots. And we always taxi a lot of times from the East Ramp to taxiway, and we take off at Echo right here. So, you can use these for your benefit in your planning maybe a day or two ahead of time you're looking at that. And so I want to erase that now. I just want to clear it. I can clear it, all of those, or yeah. And then click the pencil button top left again to get or hit done. There you go.
We almost always use this when we fly into Honolulu because we're still pretty unfamiliar with that airport, and especially if they have you land on like way over on 8 left, and you're taxiing over to the general aviation transient ramp. That's a pretty long taxi, and so that's kind of where we divide up our tasks. Let's say if John's left seat and he's actually flying the plane, then I'll pull up the airport diagram for Honolulu, and as ground control gives me the taxi instructions, then I'll write down with the pencil, I'll write down, Alpha, Delta, Foxtrot, Bravo. I can't remember what it is over there.
But you can just write on top of it.
And then I can actually, like if they gave me right on Alpha, left on Foxtrot, and then right on Bravo to parking, then I would, if I landed right here, then I would I would almost even like draw it out like that. So I've used that a lot over in Honolulu, especially. All right, I'm going to clear those and done and close that out. Back to the airport tab, something else that's pretty cool. So that's the taxiway plate. Is this 3D view? I don't know if it's going to pull up. Oh yeah. You want to play with that?
Yeah. So especially if you're flying to an unfamiliar airport, this is a new feature last year, and you can just, I've just got my finger on
there.
What's that?
How did you get in there?
Okay, let me close it. So
I see 3D view.
Top right, yeah, 3D view right there.
Yeah, and then so I can zoom if I want to, and then I'm just moving my finger around on it as I want to. An example here, we don't get to fly on runway 20 from the water, from the ocean to the runway very often until we have Kona winds like we've had. Like yesterday, 20 was open for most of the day. And so I want to know, okay, well, what is it going to look like whenever, and I'm coming back from Hana. This happened to us. We were coming back on the North Shore from Hana. They had switched from runway 02 to 20. And so if you're a little bit unfamiliar, then they have this 3D view, for you to just to get an idea of, okay, this is what terrain's going to look like. And I like it. I think it's very helpful for unfamiliar airports. I used it. We went over to Waimea, Kohala, doing a puppy rescue a few months ago. And, the terrain over there, the field elevation is 2,700 feet. And so just getting an idea of what everything is going to look like, because it looks different when you're actually flying, if you've never been there, just to spot a smaller airport that's tucked away, up in a valley. So anyway, I like this feature.
You can even load, and this gets into like, a deeper user interface, is you can load your flight path and approaches into it, or arrivals or departures, whatever you're doing, and then you can almost play it like a video, and it will virtually play your whole flight. So I mean, you're not going to see it if you're in IMC, but if you do file a flight plan and you just want to get familiar with what that's going to look like as you're coming in, then you can play it like a little movie.
And the other thing it does, we won't talk about it much today, it records. I'll go to the more button bottom right. It records track logs. So you actually can go click on a flight. I don't even know what this one is. And then you can replay it.
So this is a flight we had to Honolulu, or coming back from Honolulu.
So
to Honolulu.
The very bottom left, I can hit play. And then you see it. I'm taking off. You see that?
We actually weren't spinning around on the ground.
Yeah. But if I want to go through this quicker, you can.
Let me hear.
Yeah.
There.
So you can actually just go back and look at your
but then
altitudes.
You can do the 3D version.
And hit play there. And then I can speed it up if I want to for the whole flight. And
now we're not letting it load.
No, I'm just kind of speeding through it, but it kind of gives you the idea there's coming into Honolulu.
That's Molokai.
Oh yeah, South Shore. Sorry.
But isn't that cool?
It is cool.
Anyway, that's new with ForeFlight last year. Lets you just go back and look at your stuff.
Okay, let's get back to the airports tab. Anything else? Oh, setting favorites. So if you do have some favorite airports that you fly into, top left-hand corner, there's the little circle with the star on it. So click that. So on this iPad, these are the favorites that are saved. So it's a quick reference. You're not having to go search into the search bar and pull up that airport. So we have just about everything here. So like here's Hilo, all their frequencies, and you just toggle between your favorites like that. You do have a recents, so you can see a lot of these recent ones that we've pulled up for one reason or another. And back to favorites.
All right.
Okay. All right, so that's pretty much airport. The next session, we'll get more into some of these, how to pull up your, say, an approach into Kahului, and you're trying to pull up the plate and save the plate. We'll get deeper into that on the next session. So let's go to the Maps tab. Now, I would say when you're in flight, I guess for us, you're going to spend most of your time in the Maps tab, because that's where you're going to see your airplane geo-referenced following along. And
let's put in, let me see. Yeah,
here's that.
there you go.
Well, that's direct.
And here, so if it's direct like that, you know you're not going to fly over the 10,400 foot summit. Okay, you're going to probably do North Shore, so you can just stick your finger on that right there, and I'll just hit. That's good. And then I know I'm going to be offshore at Opana, so I can do that. So you can kind of put your waypoints in.
Then we usually go over Upolu. And then about right there. Close enough. So that's going into Waimea. So the view. So of course, this is a VFR sectional chart that we've got pulled up here. You can zoom out, and you can even zoom back in way over here. It just takes a minute for it to load. So you've got all the United States there is what we have a subscription for. So if you want to change it, let's say if you're flying IFR, the top left corner is going to be it's called a map overlay. So it pulls up this whole new menu. So right now you can see on the left-hand side, I've got the US VFR sectional chart chosen. If I'm going to file IFR or do some instrument training, then here's your low IFR chart. So for users who are listening to this, those are probably going to be the two background choices or chart choices you're going to use most of the time. There is the IFR high chart is available. And then, if you're just curious, there's a street map you can pull up and you could zoom in and see the streets, and then an aerial map. It's like a Google Earth satellite image. So if you're just curious what the terrain looks like around there, but most of the time we're going to live in the VFR and IFR sectional views. So also you can see on the right-hand side, these are all the different overlays you can have to your map. So like right now, these are the ones we usually have pulled up. So we've got the radar, TFRs, because you always want to make sure you don't have a pop-up TFR. PIREPs, user waypoints. Those are user-defined waypoints.
So let's put satellite. So satellite brings the clouds. So a lot of times the North Shore, especially Hana, a lot of clouds over there. So you can bring up, especially if you're doing some pre-flight things and you just want to, and maybe you live on the west side of Maui and you want to know, okay, I'm going to be flying north to Hana today. Before you even go to the airport, you can see, okay, well, this is what the clouds look like over there. So you may not want to, that's one is probably just a user preference, whether you want that on your screen during, flight or not. Normally I don't. Normally we keep the radar because we can see the clouds, but we want to see where the precipitation either is or where it was, because it's not, real time. Sometimes it's 5 to 15 minutes old. So you want to.
Yeah, and
you wanna
speaking of
remember
that, if you don't know, the radar up here at the top, radar composite and the radar lowest tilt, the difference between those, and I don't know, what kind of radars are feeding the information into what, but just like very basically speaking, the radar composite is basically showing the moisture that's in the air. So you see this moisture that's over here just to the west of Hana, that could be moisture that's popping up at 20,000 feet. That doesn't necessarily mean there's rain right there. But then if I go to lowest tilt, sorry, wrong one. Lowest tilt is going to show the moisture or the precipitation that's actually hitting the ground, or what the radar indicated precipitation is that's actually making it to the surface of the earth. So what I usually like, and this is just preference, I usually like to keep it on lowest tilt. I keep hitting the wrong thing, fat fingering it. I usually like to keep it on lowest tilt, and it's a nice day in Hawaii today, so there's not a lot of radar images. But I'll go over here to the continental U.S., over to the mainland. So you can see down here in, looks like around Houston, around the South Texas, East Texas. So this is the lowest tilt. You see the lightning returns there. If I go back to composite, watch how much more green should pop up in this general area. So a lot more. So something you want to think about, don't just dismiss the composite saying, oh, well, that's just moisture up in the air. That's probably at 30,000 feet. I don't need to worry about it. But I would say, back here where there's more of the green popping up, that would tell me, there's a lot of moisture in the air, and you just think about the elements that create a thunderstorm. There could be some turbulence, some convective activity, some updrafts, downdrafts back in this area, and maybe just the precipitation has not hit the ground yet. So I do want to look at that. But as I'm actually flying, looking at the lowest tilt to see what's going to be hitting the ground. A lot of these things, I'm going to go back to Hawaii over here. A lot of these choices, a few of them, airmets and sigmets, for example, for some reason, they don't populate for Hawaii. And there's several of these views that don't populate for Hawaii or Alaska in ForeFlight. So be sure, like if you're wanting to check your airmets and your sigmets, your convective sigmets, be sure and get that information either from flight service or another resource online before you go flying. But I'll show you what that does look like back over on the mainland. You see these blocks of color. So let's go back to where that weather's happening down in Texas. So your blue shaded area is going to be your airmet or sigmet Zulus. So we see that there's an airmet for icing, and also there's one for turbulence in that area. And all you have to do is just pick a spot in there and just touch it. You can't see me touching with my finger, but I'm just touching like right north of Mount Pleasant there. And then it pulls up that information. So if I want to learn more, maybe my planned route takes me at 14,000 feet. I want to check out and look more in depth and actually read the airmet for the icing, then you can do that there. Down here, south of Palestine. So we've got a convective sigmet.
From surface to 45,000 feet. That gives you the time from, 12:55, so 2 hours.
So that's nice. So you're not having to look up all these individually. They're just right there.
And I think I saw a PIREP right here.
Yes. So there's a PIREP, an urgent PIREP that popped up for severe turbulence. It tells you the altitudes. Of course, you can read a PIREP, but you see with the little red exclamation point, that would be an urgent PIREP. And then these others, like this one that has turbulence at flight level 410, then you can read it there on the map information. And then it pulls up all the different airmets and sigmets that are valid where that PIREP was put in. Now, in Hawaii, the PIREPs do populate. So that's kind of fun. The tower asks you for conditions, and next thing you know, you pull open ForeFlight and you see your PIREP pop up on ForeFlight. So I think that's fun. I'm kind of a nerd though.
Well, that's happened to us a couple of times where we've actually given PIREPs, and it's really not fun when you're flying if you've got to give one, because that just means you probably went through some turbulence or some rough weather, So to me, that's not fun.
Okay. One more thing before we give you a couple of our personal favorite tips on this tab is if I wanted to go to, let's say, PHOG to Honolulu, I'm going to hit direct. So there's my direct route to Honolulu. Then if I am going to be regardless, if I'm going to file VFR or IFR, then we're going to send that to the flight plan. So you're going to hit this button here, FPL for flight plan. You're going to make sure all the information's correct, which we're not going to go through all of that today. And then over on the right-hand side, about a quarter of a way down on the screen, you see the Share To icon.
Right next to the briefcase, yeah.
And so I'm going to send my flight over to the Flights tab. Now from here, I'm going to make sure that all of you can change your estimated time of departure, your aircraft. If you own several aircraft, you can change it to the aircraft that you have loaded in your settings. Checking everything there, weight and balance and everything, then you'll see a map and your flight rules, VFR, IFR. What I like about this, I like to do this whether I'm filing or not. I'll go ahead and load it up to my Flights tab, and then I can go to Navlog. You see the purple icon with the lines on it, and there it brings up your Navlog that private pilots love to fill out by hand on paper, and I like to do that too. But here's your Navlog, and it has your wing corrections and everything, and yeah, it's just like a digital version of your Navlog. I like at the bottom, it gives you your taxiway diagram of your departure airport and then your arrival airport.
And this is what I would recommend. It's easy to print this out. You can see at the top right, just print. You can, email it to yourself. You can print it. You can save it, whatever you want to do, text it to yourself. Anyway, that's good to do. If you've used electronic flight bags, you've most likely had something power off. It happened to me. The iPad just for whatever reason was charged, but just went off during flight.
It got too hot or something.
Yeah, I don't know why. So I had to restart it, but it wasn't a big deal. But if I was at a point in time where I really needed it, the paper chart. So having paper copies, you can't dismiss. That's always important to have. I think it's essential. Unless you're maybe here in Hawaii, you're flying to Hana and back, or just somewhere really familiar. So if you're out there flying maybe a longer flight, then having this paper copy is always good to have.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back to that page. Next to the Navlog is your briefing. So here's your weather briefing. Now, both of these, so the Navlog and the weather briefing, if you do have a check ride coming up, this is something we always say, upload it. You can print it. There should be under more an option to print. So we'll stick that in our check ride binder. So here's your NOTAMs. So there is a NOTAM for a closed or unsafe runway 8 left.
Does anybody know why that runway is closed for the foreseeable future? How many Hawaiian planes are parked on it right now? There's like 50 or I don't know, 75. It's filled up.
Yeah. Then you click through next, and we're not going to go through a whole briefing, but this is where it is easy to get like your actual weather briefing here. There's your surface analysis, METARs, TAFs. So you can go through the whole thing. And then when you do print it out, it does print nicely onto about 3 pages of paper, your charts and everything. So that's really nice to have with you as well. Okay.
And then at the very bottom, you can, that's where you file it, proceed to file. So if we wanted to file that flight plan, it's going to go straight to ATC. So they're going to have it. Sometimes it takes 30 seconds or so. I mean, we've fueled up here on the East Ramp here in Maui, filed the flight plan, and within 10 seconds it's on their computer screen up in the tower. So it's pretty simultaneous.
Yeah.
But sometimes they may tell you, hey, give us another minute or two before it comes through. So it's really easy.
Nice that you can do that electronically. Okay, we kind of got off on a tangent there, but I just wanted to show how you go from the maps page to load it into your flights tab. But we pretty much went through that flight tab. So we'll skip over that in just a little bit. But I'm going to go back to the maps tab and give you a couple of just tips here. So the direct to, let's say if I wanted to go to Molokai Airport, all I have to do is tap on the name of the airport. So PHMK. Should be able to do that. There. Okay. So now if I think, okay, I don't want to have to type into the search bar. I just want like basically a one-click thing. I can just hit direct to and boom, there we go. You can upload it to your flight plan and go through that whole process again. So if you have to make a deviation or if you decide to change destinations, that's an easy way to do that. Using the layers, I already kind of talked about that. A couple more of these. The winds aloft is kind of interesting. So I'm going to bring this down. On the right-hand side, right here where I'm moving this, you can choose either your altitude, your flight level. I'm going to go bring it down here to our GA levels. And it should be populating. For some reason, it's not. Normally, you're going to see the wind barbs on your map when you do that with the winds there. So I don't know why that's not coming up.
Let's move on from that.
Okay, I'm going to show how the ruler works.
All right, so just use 2 fingers. It's kind of hard. I mean, you can just like I've got it kind of on the screen right here. Let's go. You know, if you're filing IFR, you're going to go. They're going to give you from PHOD OG. You're going to go direct to Plum, and you see Plum right there. You can put 2 fingers, and you want to see. Okay, that's 21 miles. I'm not right on the waypoint, but close to it. That's where you're going to make that left-hand turn on that airway. So takes 13 minutes, and it's figuring 98 knots. So you're going to see your heading there as well. So very helpful during flight, just to use it and say, okay, you know, you're just needing a quick reference. Like, how far is that? I mean, you may be able to guess. Maybe you've already measured. Hey, from my knuckle to the end of my thumb is 10 nautical miles. You know, you need to have an idea, especially if you have a VFR, you know, sectional out or something. You know, that's one of those, you know, just kind of a rule of thumb.
I actually use this on my commercial check ride for my deviation. So we were about over the house where you see the blinking blue dot is, and I had to deviate to Lanai. And so that's what I did really quickly on the iPad. I just did that, and I said, okay, it's 27 miles. And he's like, really? Is it that far over there? He thought it was like 10 or 12 miles. Like, yeah.
It's telling you 16 minutes, 2 gallons of fuel. So it's really giving you, you know, those aren't going to be exacts, but it's giving you a pretty close estimate, you know, just immediately.
Yes. And so the fuel consumption and the time en route to whatever you're measuring, that's all going to based on what the default aircraft or your own ship, what that is in your profile settings. So whatever plane you have loaded in there.
All right, you want to look at plates real fast?
Okay, plates. So let's say I'm going to go back to airports. So Kahului, and I've got the taxiway diagram. So whether you pull up a taxiway diagram, an approach plate, whatever it is, you can save it basically as a favorite. So up at the top right-hand corner, you see like a book with a little plus mark on it. I'm going to click that, and it says added. Now I'm going to go to my plates. Well, it already added there. I'm going to close that. So you see at the bottom right, it added that taxiway diagram, the airport diagram, to my favorite plates. So we keep like usually the most common approaches here in Hawaii are the ones that we use the most often. Just kind of kept there as our favorites, just because if you're en route and you're going from your en route phase to your arrival phase or straight to your approach, you're not having to pull up the airport and pull up the approach and run through all the tabs. You can just boom, pull it up right here.
So I've got Lanai ILS runway 3 pulled up, and that was one of the ones that I had to use on my instrument check ride. Again, I've got the Apple Pencil out. You can see where I've still got it marked up a little bit I had the Lanai circled. I've got, I've got it circled because 117.7 was the frequency. And then
The minimums and the mist.
yeah, I've got the minimums in yellow, the mist in, procedures in yellow. And then you see, right here. Okay. We've got just typed them out, 3,000, 2,600. Those were just a little bit of a cheat, not a cheat, but just a helpful reminder for me once I got on, on the course there, just a good reminder. And when you're flying, your plane actually should be showing up on those lines right there. So you see where you are on the actual plate. And you also can put this plate on the map. Do you remember how to do that? Like if I want to put this, just add it to the map right there. So it overlays the top of it. And then you just have to change. It's there.
You gotta invert it.
You gotta, yeah, there it is right there. So I want to invert the plate. I want to make it darker or a little bit lighter. Let's make it about like that. So now I can see it as it relates to the big picture, and then it just it's overlaid on top there. So again in the plane, you're actually going to see your plane flying on the map. So it can be a distraction a little bit. I don't actually like using it like that.
Yeah.
But
a lot of people do. We
yeah.
just we've not used it that way.
But you got to brief this approach. So again, on the instrument, I had a paper copy because in real life, it happened to me where the actual iPad turned off in flight. And I remember when it did that, I had it up over here to my left. I actually just put it in the floor because I didn't want to even use it as a resource anymore. Another time, the vibration from the plane, the little suction cup, it vibrated it off. So for me personally, I did not want to rely, especially going into a check ride, I didn't want to rely on this electronic version when I knew the paper wasn't going anywhere. The paper was going to stay on my kneeboard. So really you can use the iPad for situational awareness. That's what it was really. It's a great benefit to use it for that because you can see your plane on the map if you need to look, and that's okay. But for situational awareness, it can be a lifesaver.
All right. Well, that's kind of plates in a nutshell. Let's go to imagery. Now, basically, imagery is your weather. We love it. I know a lot of ForeFlight users, you get a lot of your weather from ForeFlight itself. Here we've got the Central Pacific significant weather charts pulled up. So you can zoom in, you can kind of see what's going on around here. There's a few thunderstorms out there to the northeast. And again, like some of the map overlays, there's not as much available for Hawaii and the Pacific region and Alaska as there is for the continental US. So I'm going to go just real quickly to USA. And you can see here on the left all of these different weather products that are available. So a lot of these charts here we have to learn, and we have to learn how to use for our written test, or we may have to kind of tell about it in a check ride, but we really don't use them much here in Hawaii, like, all of your icing forecasts and icing charts. But use this opportunity, especially even if you have the free version for 30 days, just go through here and see like the convective outlook chart. And you can see what that looks like, because a lot of us are going to be flying on the mainland one day, especially if you're going to be flying for the airlines.
Yeah, we were just looking at Houston a little bit ago. So there's the day one wind probability down in Texas. So you see the storms. Very helpful.
Yeah. Okay, so you can really go into a deep dive on that. All right,
let's
scratch pads.
This is good. I like the scratch pad. A lot of people do use that. You can use it for whatever. Here's the get your clearance, so you can have this out right here. So you're cleared. And let's say you can file an IFR flight plan, but you also can use this for all your VFR stuff too. You're cleared to the northeast, offshore, follow the shoreline. So this is our direction to Hana. 1,500 frequency, 119.5 we know, and then we're going to squawk 1732. These, you can already put some of these in because you know you're going to be at 1,500. That's what you're going to be cleared. You know it's going to be northeast. You can already have these written out. You may just write them out on a piece of paper. You may have them memorized already if you fly a lot and make a lot of HANA flights, but this is just really helpful. And if you file your flight plan, ahead of time as well, you're most likely going to get what you filed. So you can already, have a lot of these filled out. And then if it changes and they give you something that changes just a little bit, you can just mark it out and then you can just rewrite. So I like the feature of the Scratchpad. Craft is already set up in there. Here's a nav log. It's already in the system as well.
Or ATIS.
Sorry. And then you can hit some new Scratchpad and do what you want to do. I mean, you can just get creative. You just want something in flight. If you're in flight and you're IFR and you're going to go from, say, here to Honolulu, they're going to give you different headings. Right turn 185, 5,000. And then a little bit later, they're going to say, okay, left heading 178, maintain 5,000. So you can write these down because you can't just use your memory. You've got to keep up in flight, writing down whatever ATC is talking to you about. So that's helpful during flight. You obviously can use paper and pen if that's what you're used to, but if you like the electronic route, this is a good thing to go to. You don't have to use the pencil. I like the pencil. You can use your hand, and you can change the font size. It's at 3-point right now. I mean, I'm writing with my finger right now. That works just as well. So you can increase font size, color, whatever.
Give it to kids who are getting anxious and squirmy and let them play tic-tac-toe on it if you have to, if you're okay with handing over your iPad. Some people will use it for that.
So that's the Scratchpad in a nutshell. Lots you can do with that.
All right, more is basically all of your settings. So this is where you're going to have your account profile here. There are checklists. So, we've got a checklist for Cessna 172. We've got one of our pilots. He's like 100% electronic. He uses this checklist for all of his pre-flight. Let's see, you can do under aircraft. This is where you would set up your default aircraft. So you can see some of the ones we've used back in Arkansas, some of our aircraft there. So we've got 738 Foxtrot Alpha set up. This is where you do your performance profile, best glide speed, your best glide ratio. So all of the different settings that helps it back in your flight planning pages to help calculate your time en route, your fuel burn.
It also feeds to ATC. So whatever you have in here, and when you file a flight plan, they're actually going to see this equipment. So if you just make up some equipment, you're going to make a mistake because they're going to maybe say, "Hey, are you a slant alpha with your equipment?" And you may say, "No, I'm slant golf." So you want to be accurate on this side of things as well. Yeah. And I would be, we fly conservatively, so. Maybe the plane gets 8 gallons per hour. Leslie and I are both going to put in 10 gallons per hour because we just want to have a little bit. It's just has everything to do. It's a cushion. Has everything to do with safety. So we'll put 10 gallons here, electronically. So we don't want to, cheat ourselves. We're going to put 10 here, just like we plan mentally as well.
All right. If you want to do an electronic weight and balance, and for some reason we've got our old A36 in here, but you would put in, this is where you'd put in your pilot, co-pilot, passenger, baggage, fuel, and then where you see the graph, I'm not going to do it right now, but the graph will be your weight and balance, your CG envelope, whether you're within limits or not. So that's nice to have on there. Track logs, John showed you that a second ago, so I'm just going to pick a random one here. You can see that again. So those are saved. There is a feature in the settings called breadcrumbs. So as you're flying along, like if we had just begun this flight, you would see it tracking along with a green line, and the breadcrumbs can stay on there. There's a setting, I think it can stay on there for about an hour. So maybe you have, you're maybe doing your commercial maneuvers with your instructor and you want to debrief, you can debrief those breadcrumbs, and then later on you can go back and you can see it on the track log. All right, another thing that it's not going to show up here, but on maps, let's say that where the blue dot is, where we're sitting right now, that we're actually flying right here. So you would see like a jet airplane or a Cessna or something. There is a feature called Glide Advisor, and it's in the settings here. So there's a lot of different settings you can choose. Glide Advisor, it's going to take the type of aircraft you have and the glide ratio that you set up in your aircraft's profile. So like a 172 has a 9-to-1 ratio. And then you'll see on the map like a line around your airplane, your gliding distance or estimated gliding distance. So if you are saying, you know, I want to keep my route within gliding distance of the shoreline, then you have a graphical depiction of that. Another, and it's not set up on this iPad, another cool setting is extended runway center lines. I'll see if I can find it really quick, but
right there.
Extended center lines, turn that on. Well, it's not showing up now, but it would have for Kahului, like runway 2, you would see extended center lines where it would take those runway headings and extend them out with a line actually spread out on the map. So that one's kind of cool. There's another feature called the Traffic Pattern Advisor. You can turn that on, and as you're coming into an airport, based on the winds, it'll actually give you like a path to fly. So like for Hana, it may have you go in on the 45 and come in for runway 8, or overflying the field, you know, 500 feet above traffic pattern altitude and coming in on the downwind. So it'll help you with that. To me, that's a lot of information to kind of take in when you're in the pattern, but that is available on there. It's kind of cool. Inverted chart colors. So if you're flying at night, we use this a lot this past month when we were flying at night. I'm going to go to this setting. There's a quick setting toggle here, and I'm going to, at the top, inverted chart colors. So then that makes it really easy on your eyes at night. It's not the bright background. And one last thing is electronic logbook. And we've not done this, we really need to. Back under more on the left, you'll see logbook at the top. Now you can set up your electronic logbook, and when you do fly a flight, it will automatically update your electronic logbook. Now you want to make sure, confirm the numbers, you know, with your Hobbs meter, but that's kind of cool. And you know, we do, again, that student that's all electronic, he just got his private certificate back in September. He used the ForeFlight logbook, and he would have a lesson with Ovik. Ovik would go into ForeFlight on his iPad and actually sign, and all of his endorsements are there and everything. So that's real cool. I'm kind of old school. I like my paper logbook, but it would be nice to have it backed up electronically. That's like a back burner project that we have, to get it backed up on ForeFlight's logbook. Oh, that's a lot.
Any quick questions? This is, I know this has been almost an hour long, so.
No, I totally love this. It's
yeah.
Definitely a good overview. I got stuck at a couple times where I had like weird pictures on my iPad. Well, like when I pulled up maps, I had some looked like almost kind of like you know, compass rose and some other stuff in there. But I you know, was hard. I kind of got rid of it, but then I would miss some of the stuff you said. But
Okay.
I at least know where to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to start diving in and playing around with it.
Yeah.
So the next session, I mean, we'll go a little bit further into all the airport information, what's available there, how to pull up your arrivals, your approaches, you know, your different charts there.
I think looking at some different airports, maybe some carriers, especially that you've flown into that are so unique, that I think would be good just to play around, letting us all see that. Same for you, John. Hey, John,
Yeah,
have you
there's
just?
some fun ones. Catch a can or
Yeah.
Juneau especially.
Hey, John, have you done all your flying here in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you're totally familiar with everything here for sure. Well,
here to
I,
Honda and
from a
Lanai,
private pilot
I
standpoint.
haven't really done any of the flights that I've done to Honolulu have always been with OVIC or people. And aside from going to Kona on one of my long solos in Apollo, it's pretty much just a Hana a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. You feel like you can do Hana with your eyes closed, I bet.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Well, thanks for joining today. And we'll get it rendered. We'll get it uploaded, get it onto to YouTube, so others that and us as well can go back and take a look at.
Thanks so much.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're so
Yeah,
welcome.
really appreciate it.
Yeah,
All right.
we'll shoot off an email when we do the next meeting, and we'll do like round 2